10 lesser-known murder mysteries that remain unsolved. Welcome to Lee Daxia Fun Facts. Here are the most interesting things for you. If you like it, please subscribe to me and open the reminder button so that you can see my video even if you like. 5. Frauke Liebes. Excitement hung in the air in the city of Paderborn, Germany in June 2006 as the FIFA World Cup tournament was in full swing. 21-year-old Frauke Liebes joined a friend at a local pub to watch a match between England and Sweden. At some point during the night, she borrowed another friend's cell phone battery as hers was just about flat. Before she left at 11 p.m. she put her own battery back in her phone and set off on a walk to her house, 1.5 kilometers away. At just before 1 a.m., Frauke still hadn't arrived home. Her roommate received a text from her, saying she would be back later that morning. However, Frauke never returned home and didn't arrive at work either. Her mother reported her missing the same day. In the days that followed, Frauke called her roommate 5 times from 5 different locations within Paderborn. She didn't answer the multiple questions her roommate had and would only repeat that she would be home soon. During the last phone call, Frauke's sister spoke to her and later told police that Frauke had answered yes when asked whether she was being held captive. The phone calls then abruptly stopped. Frauke's remains were found near Lichtenau almost 4 months later. Her bag and possessions were missing. Her body was severely decomposed, and a cause of death could not be established. Police later concluded that Frauke had been held captive for a while in Nieheim before being killed and her body dumped. There were 5 initial suspects, but all were released without being charged due to a lack of conclusive evidence. Frauke Liebes' murder remains unsolved. 4. Diao Aiching. On the 19th of January 1996, a street cleaner in Nanjing thought she had received a belated Christmas gift when she found a bag of meat sitting in a clump of snow next to the road. She took it home but was horrified when she started cleaning the meat and discovered 3 human fingers inside the bag. The woman notified the police, whereafter officers found more human remains in 2 other areas. The body parts totaled over 2,000 pieces and a boiled head and limbs were also found. It was eventually established that the remains were those of 19-year-old university student, Diao Aiching. Diao went missing on the 10th of January 1996 after getting into a fight with other students at the university over the use of electrical appliances. She was never seen again. Police launched a massive investigation but to date, Diao's killer is still unknown and the motive for her gruesome murder remains elusive. 3. Terry Sutter. Terry Sutter was looking forward to spending some time with his friends at the movies and the local bowling alley on the 1st of September 1973. But before he could do that, he had to finish his chores for the day, which included mowing someone's lawn. When he was done, he waited in vain for his mother to pick him up and eventually walked home. That evening he joined his friends in Frankfort, Michigan with strict instructions from his parents to be at his grandmother's house no later than 11 p.m. The next day Terry's grandmother informed them that the 15-year-old teenager never arrived at her house and she still hadn't heard anything from him. Terry's parents immediately informed the police that he was missing, but officers weren't especially worried and voiced their opinion that he was probably just hiding somewhere to avoid having to go to school. However, they soon regretted thinking this. That afternoon a tourist stumbled upon Terry's body on a beach in Michigan. It soon became apparent that someone had held him down in the sand until he suffocated, his lungs and eyes were filled with sand. He also had multiple bruises on his head and neck. The teenager's parents were devastated but requested minimal media coverage of the murder. They had their son buried in the Lake Township Cemetery, but their trauma was far from over. For some reason, Terry's grave kept being vandalized. Flower pots would be broken and plants ripped out. Things got so bad that Terry's parents eventually had his remains moved to an unmarked grave. It remains unknown who was responsible for Terry Sutter's death and whether his killer and the person who vandalized his grave were one and the same. 2. Ida Lowry. Edwin Smith was tired and grateful to be heading home at just after midnight on April 23, 1960. As he passed between Clybourne and St. Paul Avenues, he thought he heard someone screaming. He stopped his car and listened. Sure enough, he heard cries for help coming from an alleyway. Running to it, he couldn't believe what he saw. An elderly woman, later identified as 76-year-old Ida Lowry, was lying in the alley covered in blood and bruises. When he tried to help her up, she screamed in pain, so he left to call the police instead. Unfortunately, an hour after police arrived and transported Ida to a hospital, she died. Before she drew her last breath, however, Ida was able to tell officers that a big white man who worked at the bridge grabbed her and hit her with a heavy object. He then raped her. When he was done, he simply left her to die in the alley. An investigation into Ida's life revealed that she was somewhat of an eccentric loner who loved rifling through garbage cans. She had 2 sisters, both of whom hadn't seen her in a while. Police ramped up their search for suspects and identified 6 men of interest within just a few days. None of them were ever charged. A 24-year-old man falsely confessed to the murder, and over the next few weeks many others were questioned. However, Ida Lowry's murderer is yet to be found. 1. Tristan Brubach. Tristan Brubach was an only child to his parents. The family lived in Frankfurt, Austria, and Tristan attended Walter Koch Primary School up until the 5th grade, after which he moved to a school in Sindelingen. Tragically, Tristan's mother, who was a drug addict, committed suicide when her son was only 10 years old. Tristan's grandmother soon moved in with him and his father to help look after the young boy. Tristan, being bored with his grandmother's company, took to hanging around outside and walking around the neighborhood until late in the evening. When he wasn't outside, he was playing video games and tending to his pet rabbit. Soon, however, Tristan started to rebel because he wanted to fit in with older kids. He started smoking in a bid to appear cool, but this didn't prevent other children from bullying him. On the 26th of March 1998, Tristan didn't want to go to school. He asked his father if he could go to the doctor instead, claiming that his back was sore. His father didn't fall for this story and told his son to go to school. Tristan eventually pitched up at school at 9 a.m. after hanging out with a friend outside the school premises. Later in the day, he asked the teacher if he could leave early to go to the doctor and was granted permission. He was last seen alive at a park in front of the Frankfurt-Höchst railway station. Some of his fellow schoolmates found Tristan's lifeless body on their way home from school. They ran back to the school building to alert the teachers, and the police arrived at the scene just after 5 in the afternoon. Tristan's body was lying in a pedestrian tunnel. He had been severely beaten, strangled, and his neck had a deep cut. Upon further inspection, police found that the young boy's testicles had been removed and that flesh from his thighs and buttocks had been cut out. The murder weapon was found close to the scene. 3 teenagers claimed to have seen the murder take place from a distance and gave police a description of the killer. However, after a large-scale fingerprint operation, the identification of several persons of interest and the offering of a monetary reward for information, the case remains unsolved. Thanks for watching my video. If you like my channel, please subscribe to me. I will keep updating.